The destruction wrought by the COVID-19 pandemic is well known. By the end of 2021, 2 years after the pandemic began, the official death toll stands at over 5.2 million. However, because of how difficult it is to know whether someone's death was truly a result of COVID, that figure is an underestimate. The number of global excess deaths, fatalities directly and indirectly caused by COVID, is estimated to be much higher, at around 17.3 million. World War II claimed an estimated 70 to 85 million lives. Both events are significant tragedies, but both bred innovation. In World War II, the war effort spurred many countries to fund more projects with more money than they otherwise would have. This led to many government-funded technological breakthroughs. Flu vaccines, jet engines, penicillin, radar, and the industrialization of plastic on a huge scale, such that it would eventually be used in almost everything, ranging from building construction to food packaging. Fast forward more than half a century later, during the COVID-19 pandemic, and human innovation has manifested itself through a medical breakthrough, specifically the mRNA technology that is used in some of the most successful COVID vaccines. But just like plastic was around long before World War II, mRNA technology had been worked on for decades before the pandemic began in 2020. However, it was these global crises that pushed human ingenuity further and faster than ever before. A traditional vaccine injects the body with a weakened part of the virus responsible for COVID-19. This triggers a response and prepares the immune system to fight the virus when the body is infected for real. Messenger RNA, or mRNA vaccines, do things a little differently. Instead of injecting the body with the virus itself, it injects artificial mRNA molecules. These molecules, which are specific to the virus responsible for COVID-19, instruct the body to produce a spike protein, which is normally found on the surface of COVID virus particles. The same process as before then occurs. The viral particle stimulates the immune system to respond and prepares it to fight the virus when the body is infected for real. Essentially, mRNA vaccines contain the blueprint for producing the viral particle rather than the particle itself. This may not seem like a huge difference. After all, the result is the same. The body learns how to fight the virus in training mode so that when it shows up for real, it's an easy win. However, even ignoring the future applications of the technology, mRNA-based vaccines have two distinct advantages over their traditional counterparts. Firstly, mRNA vaccines can be created more quickly than other vaccines. They only need a small part of the virus and so can be adapted more easily than traditional jabs. The flu virus mutates every year, which means that the flu vaccine must be changed every year as well. Existing flu vaccines provide between 40 and 60% protection when they are given, because from when the vaccine is made to when it is administered, the virus has often once again mutated. mRNA vaccines would also need to be changed annually, but because the process is so much faster, the immunity provided would be stronger. The second advantage of an mRNA vaccine is that it is safe for people with compromised immune systems. Current vaccines that contain live but weakened viruses can't be given to people with compromised immune systems, for example, transplant and cancer patients. This is because there is a risk of them contracting the virus from the vaccine. But mRNA vaccines only contain part of the virus, making it impossible to contract the disease from the vaccine. While the COVID crisis in 2020 pushed the application of mRNA technology to the forefront, scientists have been working on it for over 40 years. mRNA was first discovered in the 1960s, and the first proteins produced from mRNA in a lab occurred in 1969. The applications of the technology as a treatment began in the 1990s, with the first mRNA vaccines being tested on mice in 1993. But it wouldn't be until 2 decades later that the first human trials for an mRNA vaccine would be conducted. and by the start of 2020, Moderna, a biotech company specializing in RNA therapeutics, had advanced 9 mRNA vaccine candidates into people for testing, with only one progressing to large phase trials. The progress up to this point had spanned half a century, with numerous setbacks along the way. However, with the discovery of the SARS-CoV-2 virus at the end of 2019, everything was about to change. Within days of the virus's genome sequence becoming available online, Moderna worked to conduct mouse studies and later launched human trials, all in less than 10 weeks. BioNTech, a German company that partnered with Pfizer, a US pharmaceutical giant, didn't wait around either. It went from first in-human testing to emergency approval in less than 8 months. Developing a safe and effective vaccine in that time frame is an unprecedented accomplishment. As a comparison, the polio vaccine took 20 years to go from early stage trials to first approvals. By the end of 2021, the world was turning out almost 1.5 billion doses of COVID vaccine a month. And just like in World War II, governments played no small role in such a feat. Early funding of mRNA vaccine research long before the pandemic, supporting preclinical studies and absorbing test costs and risks throughout the different phases of development and manufacturing were all essential, and eliminating any potential market risk faced by pharmaceutical companies by providing advanced guaranteed purchase commitments ensured there was no hesitation. Exact figures of public spending on developing and manufacturing the COVID vaccines are hard to find. Recent studies estimate the US government spent between $18 and $23 billion since the start of the pandemic on vaccine development. That compares with $15.3 billion spent on HIV vaccine research between 2000 and 2019. However, it is important to note that this kind of spending pales in comparison to the total amount spent by governments throughout the pandemic, which is put at around $17 trillion. The pandemic has put mRNA technology in the spotlight and led to a fundamental change in the way it is viewed. 5 years ago, there was hesitation from large companies about investing in the space. After all, no mRNA-based product had ever been approved by regulators until the crisis. But the fact that a safe and effective mRNA vaccine could be developed in less than a year, manufactured at scale, and given to millions of people has made a world of difference. There is no doubt that vaccines using mRNA technology will play a significant role in preparing the world for future pandemics. And yet, it is the applications of the technology beyond vaccines for infectious diseases that has led to the surge in interest from investors and traditional pharmaceutical companies. Shares in a number of prominent mRNA companies have skyrocketed since the pandemic began, signalling a serious interest for investments in biotech. French pharmaceutical group Sanofi is investing €400 million a year to set up an mRNA centre for developing vaccines. US drug maker Merck is eyeing up several mRNA therapeutics companies for acquisition so that it can begin developing treatments using the technology. And European pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca has partnered with RNA firm Vax Equity to develop over 20 new drugs. New mRNA treatments are expected to start entering the market as early as 2025. To start with, companies are looking to develop mRNA-based vaccines for some of the world's most deadly infectious diseases. BioNTech has begun development of mRNA vaccines to deal with malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV, which together accounted for over 2.5 million deaths in 2020. But the use of mRNA will not be limited to vaccines or fighting infectious diseases. mRNA could be used to treat cancer in the future. A cancer vaccine would aim to stimulate an immune response against existing tumours, rather than preventing diseases like a flu shot. Scientists would remove tissue from the tumour and use this to encode specific proteins into an mRNA molecule, which would then be injected into a patient. This would trigger the body to train its immune system to recognize mutations on cancer cells as foreign agents, attacking and destroying those cells. In the not-so-distant future, mRNA drugs may be used to treat a wide variety of diseases, such as allergies, autoimmune conditions, and inflammatory diseases. Right now, Moderna and AstraZeneca are collaborating on an mRNA treatment that encourages the growth of blood vessels. This could be used after a heart attack to grow new cardiac blood vessels. That is not to say that this is all guaranteed. Failure remains incredibly likely. Less than 10% of drugs that enter phase 1 trials ever reach the market, and it is going to take years for mRNA to come into its own and deliver on such potential. Its success is by no means guaranteed. But there is no question that the pandemic has triggered a revolution in the pharmaceutical industry and the way molecular biology is applied to medicine. The founders of BioNTech believe that in 15 years' time, a third of all newly approved drugs will be based on mRNA. Even if the technology delivers on only a fraction of its promises, there is no doubt that a transformation in global health is currently underway.